I don't do this very often, but the number of days I'm sober, 2,452, which comes down to 6 years, 8 months, and 16 days. And I have an app to track because I don't keep track anymore at all. Like I just kind of let the app do its work. And because I tried to build my life away from being in recovery. I'm always in recovery, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not afraid of it, and I respect it. For me, I have always been around and surrounded by abuse of drugs and alcohol by others. And I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to out anybody.
Of
That's
course.
not okay. But
we're all flawed creatures.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all
and
are.
I've grown up with the example being drink and drug your way through absolutely everything, feel nothing ever. And, jumping ahead, after so many years of that and the abuse and never missing a party and all of that stuff, I got terribly ill. I went to a Cubs game with a buddy of mine, and I got home, and in the morning, my wife had to go to a baby shower, and I'm like, honey, my hand hurts. I don't know what's wrong with my hand. And she thought I was just complaining because I was drunk and hungover and coked up for so many days. And she's like, just suck it up. And one of the ladies there was a nurse, and she's like, hey, you should go home and take him to the doctor. He's like, what? And I thought the same thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I wasn't there. I was at home, right? But Jen called. She's like, I'm going to come home and we'll go to the ER. I said, that's good because it hurts. My blood pressure was up. I just didn't feel
Something
right.
was off.
But
Yeah.
really off. And the lady's like, the nurse, I'm not going to say her name, said, hey, like that looks like an infection. There's a line going up his arm. And if it gets higher and it gets into some bloodstream levels, that you could die from this. I come in, I'm sitting there, the nurse takes my blood pressure. She looks at me, she takes off the arm thing, kind of goes to my other arm, takes it again, and she looks at me again, and I'm like, is everything all right? She's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it one more time. She takes my blood pressure again, and then she's, I'll be right back, and leaves. I thought, well, that's a little strange, comes back in, and the doctor kicked the door open like John Wayne in a Western, and is like, hey, we're gonna admit you to the main hospital. I said, well, I think you got the wrong guy. I said, I'm just here, like my finger hurts. Like, that's it. He's like, listen, your blood pressure, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong because it's been a few years.
Yeah, of course.
But like 200 over 100, like outrageously high.
Thank you very much, and open your eyes, and hopefully you feel calmer and better, and all those things, all the hippy dippity things. But I thank you, friend, for coming here, and I want to give you an opportunity to share your story, the story of sobriety.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And doing some research for this podcast, obviously alcohol is, and other things as well, is a huge challenge for a lot of us, specifically in today's society.
No question.
Yeah. So I want to give you an opportunity to, share your story. Tell us about you, not necessarily, what you do for a living, which is fine as well, but get behind that avatar a little bit and tell us your life story, and then what led you to your challenge with alcohol and how you overcame it.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me, first of all.
Thank you, sir.
And let's see. I don't do this very often, but the number of days I'm sober, 2,452, which comes down to 6 years, 8 months, and 16 days. And I have an app to track because I don't keep track anymore at all. Like I just kind of let the app do its work. And because I tried to build my life away from being in recovery. I'm always in recovery, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not afraid of it, and I respect it. But I try not to make it my identity anymore. For the beginning years, it does take over, and it has to, I think, to do it the right way, because it's a slippery, dangerous slope if you get cocky or think you've got this. And I've realized that I don't have anything, not my sobriety, not success, not peace. You have to work for those things. And I say that as kind of a basis for like who I am today. I try to live very simply. I have a very positive routine in my life. I'm married to a wonderful woman. I have 2 beautiful children. That for me has become who I am and what I love most. What I do for a living, how I get money, who cares about it?
Right.
That to me, I love my job, but that's just what I do,
Sure.
for money because I have to.
Right. Got to
But
pay those bills.
got to pay the bills. Got to pay the
Got
bills.
to pay the bills, man.
But for me, I have always been around and surrounded by abuse of drugs and alcohol by others. And I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to out anybody.
Of
That's
course.
not okay. But
We're all flawed creatures.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all
And
are.
I've grown up with the example being drink and drug your way through absolutely everything, feel nothing ever.
Wow.
And those in my family, lots of abuse. And so everything for me was bottled up emotion and don't feel anything, but drink and fake it. And so my dad, I will say, was a Marine Corps veteran from Vietnam, Silver Star. He earned the Silver Star. I hate to say win. That's not the right way to approach it. And he had a lot of, he was terribly wounded and brought a lot of the war home with him. And his alcoholism and his drug addictions became primary for him. And my parents got divorced. I stayed and lived with my dad and just tormented abuse. And I'm not blaming him. Please understand, my issues are my own issues
Sure.
with alcoholism and drugs. So I say that though, my relationship with my father, and I've come to terms with it. He passed on in 2001 from, believe it or not, trauma associated from Vietnam and the drinking, and he ended up getting infections and passing away and dying because of that.
Right.
And for me, I grew up knowing only alcoholism and drug addiction at incredibly painful levels, where my dad would keep me up for days and days and days at a time, while I was a young kid in junior high and in high school, and still have to try to live my life normally, go to school, all of those things with this kind of weight and package behind me of trauma. Now, again, I'm not blaming my father. Please understand. I know it sounds like I am,
Not
but
at all.
it's the basis for how I learned to deal with things. And what my example was and came to be was drink and drug your way through it. And which is exactly what I did. And the problem is I was very, very good at it. And I hate to say that, but what I mean is I was always the first guy to the party, the last to leave. I had lots of quote unquote friends,
Sure.
because I always had a bag of cocaine in my pocket.
Wow.
And tons of booze, and I was the life of the party, and I was fun.
Sure.
And I wasn't a violent, abusive drunk. I was the guy dancing around with a lampshade on his head.
The fun drunk.
The fun drunk.
The
And
fun
everybody
drunk.
likes that
Yeah,
guy.
everybody likes that guy.
Then throw some cocaine in it,
Oh
and I
my
can go for
gosh.
days.
Holy
So,
smokes.
and that was,
Yeah.
so I had my first real drunk experience all the way back in 8th grade. And it didn't stop. It literally from 8th grade, I was drunk every single weekend till about 6 years ago. And the weekends turned into, instead of just Friday, Saturday, they turned into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And all of a sudden I was finding all these reasons to spend all of my time rampage drinking. And I don't mean a little bit of drinking. And I'm not one of those people, I don't describe it like gladiator school. I'm not proud of it, but just to put a frame around it for people, a night out for me would start with a half a bottle of vodka before I even walked out the door, sometimes a full bottle of vodka. Then when I'm out drinking, I was already 3, 4, or 5 hours into it, maybe. Then I was drinking with everyone socially. And then I would go home and stay up with my cocaine until 6 a.m.
Right.
So the volume of it is my volume. And I say this again because everyone's level is their level. And if 2 drinks makes you crazy, then 2 drinks is your level. And that's you.
That's the bar.
That's the bar. And, but I say it's different for everybody, but it's the same. Doesn't matter the volume. It kind of matters why you're drinking and what you're doing when you're drinking, what you're doing after it. And when you start to miss work and school and avoid family time and family life, and all of a sudden you're getting fired from your jobs, you're not showing up for things, you're a train wreck all the time. That was what my life became. It was literally holding on, white knuckling everything in my life all the time, every single day, because it was, when can I start drinking? When can I do what I want to do, which was drink and drug? And then it turned into cocaine all day, every day for years, to the point where, like, on the way to work, I would leave my home in the morning and I'd start my day with a cup of coffee and a couple of toots of blow and get out the door, go to the train station. And on the way to the train station, I knew a couple gas stations on the way. I would stop, hit their bathroom, do some more bumps.
Really?
Do bumps on the train, get to the office, do bumps in the office, at work, in the bathroom. Then on the way home, the reverse would be true. And then I would start drinking because, oh, something bad happened, or something good happened, or nothing happened.
Right. The ego is just like, hey.
Whatever it was, there was always a reason to start drinking. And my thing was, of course, vodka, but it turned into beers all day, all night, and shots of whiskey. Tullamore Dew was like my favorite, which is, and I would just slam shots of that all night. And I'd get 2 hours of sleep. And you can imagine what you would look like and feel like after years and years and years of that.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow you get really good at faking life, though, in that constant pain and trauma that you're living in, for all the emotional reasons and all the baggage and all the things that are driving the behavior. And then you come to love the feeling, and then you come to hate the feeling, and then you hate yourself, and then you're drinking because you hate yourself.
Right.
All that crazy stuff. And, jumping ahead, after so many years of that, and the abuse and never missing a party and all of that stuff, I got terribly ill. I went to, believe it or not, I went to a Cubs game with a buddy of mine, and I got home, and in the morning, my wife had to go to a baby shower, and I'm like, honey, my hand hurts. I don't know what's wrong with my hand. And she thought I was just complaining because I was drunk and hungover and coked up for so many days. And she's like, just suck it up. And she played along nicely. I wouldn't say she empowered me to do that, but she knew who I was, and we had kids and a family. So you carry on, right? And again, being good at what I was doing, and with the drinking and the drugging, you kind of learn to hide your life certain ways, make up all kinds of excuses.
Sure.
So I was sitting on the couch, and she's like leaving. I'm like, my hand kind of hurts. And she was making fun of me, like, you're being a little pussy. Pardon my language.
No,
okay
you can
to say. Okay,
absolutely. Podcast. We can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Okay.
YouTube may not like it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Who cares about YouTube?
So she went and she took a picture of me, oddly enough, and went to this baby shower. And she was just joking around and showed a picture of me hungover. And I had said that my finger had hurt in my left hand. She showed a picture of my hand and my arm and me laying there. And one of the ladies there was a nurse. And she's like, hey, you should go home and take him to the doctor. He's like, what? And I thought the same thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I wasn't there. I was at home, right? But Jen called. She's like, I'm going to come home and we'll go to the ER. I said, that's good, because it hurts. My blood pressure was up. I just didn't feel
something
right.
was off.
But really off.
Mm.
And the lady's like, the nurse, I'm not going to say her name, said, hey, like, that looks like an infection. There's a line going up his arm. And if it gets higher and it gets into some bloodstream levels, that you could die from this. So we went to this emergency room near the house. It was like, there's the main hospital and then kind of a satellite hospital, but it had ER. It was very nice.
Sure.
And I went in there and I just described it. I said, my hand hurts. And I legitimately thought that I had a sliver in my finger or a piece of broken glass in there or something, because it just felt weird. And I'm like, I don't get why this hurts so bad. And it was hard to bend it. So they come in, I'm sitting there. The nurse takes my blood pressure. She looks at me. She takes off the arm thing, kind of goes to my other arm, takes it again, and she looks at me again. And I'm like, is everything all right? She's like, yeah, I'm going to do it one more time. She takes my blood pressure again. And then she's, I'll be right back. And leaves. I thought, well, that's a little strange, Comes back in, and the doctor kicked the door open like John Wayne in a Western, and is like, hey, we're going to admit you to the main hospital. I said, well, I think you got the wrong guy. I said, I'm just here, like, my finger hurts. Like, that's it. He's like, listen, your blood pressure, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong because it's been a few
Yeah,
years.
of course.
But like 200 over 100, like outrageously high. And your pulse and all these things, your eyes and your bloodshot in your finger and the expansion in your finger. He's like, I'm not going to say for sure, but it looks like cellulitis and you have a terrible blood infection. I said, okay. I said, again, I think you have the wrong guy. I'm like, there's just hung over and my finger hurts. So I somehow managed to, I said, I'll call my wife, I'll have her bring me. She's like, no, we're going to have you go in an ambulance. And those are incredibly expensive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm like, look, I just have my wife drive me. She's right down the street because she dropped me off. We have kids, right? So you can't just sit with the drunk, hungover, coked up guy at the hospital all the time because you've got a family and kids to take care of, which is what my wife did. And so she comes and gets me and they come out and they say, look, if you smoke, you cannot smoke in the car. He'll stroke out. Because my blood pressure and everything was so high, like you can't add elements to this problem. So we get to the main hospital and I'm not wealthy, I'm not rich, I'm nobody, right? They're waiting for us at the front doors with a wheelchair. And I'm like, again, I go, I think you might be waiting for the wrong guy. I go,
like,
this
no,
is
you're
weird.
it.
Like, I don't understand. So they get me in, they whisk me in, they push me through the paperwork process real quick at the main desk just to sign in. They get me into an ER unit, an intensive care unit.
Wow.
And they start running all these tests and they're like, you have not only cellulitis, but you have such a bad infection that's been going on for so long that you're probably not going to make it out of here.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's still going, I don't think you've got the right person.
Right.
Terribly out of shape. I ate like shit. I didn't sleep for days and days at a time. I was always drunk and coked up.
How old were you at this time?
So 6 years ago, so it was like mid 40s, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm 54 now.
48.
And so again, I'm like, this is a little strange. So they come in and they start bringing teams of doctors in.
Wow.
An infectious disease doctor. They're bringing orthopedic surgeons. They're bringing the regular floor doctors and regular surgeons and all these people and all these specialists. And I'm like, still not convinced that they got the right guy. I'm like, this is crazy. And they're like, no, listen, like you have as bad of quote unquote, I'm just going to call it a staph infection to keep things simple, that we've ever seen. Like it's so bad that other doctors from other hospitals were coming to see me. Wow. Not because they were of course trying to help me, but I became now medically interesting.
Sure.
People, which is not where you want to be.
Yeah, that's not a good thing
in your life. That is
They're
not
like,
a
hey,
good
come
place.
check this guy out.
Yeah, like you're not going to believe this.
He's really messed up.
I don't know what he did.
I can't believe he's alive.
Yeah, that is exactly how the conversations went. So turns out I had such a terrible infection that all of what was happening and where the pain was coming from was the cellulitis and my extremities shutting down and dying. So I was getting necrotic from my fingertips and toes and things inward. My kidneys and my liver and my organs were shutting down to protect my body, essentially, is what starts to happen. And the doctor's like, look, you're days away here from dying. Like, we don't know if we could even help you at this point. Now, keep in mind, I mean, however much I weigh now, I was, imagine like 60 more pounds, 50 more pounds.
Oh, wow. That's a significant difference.
Yeah. So I was quite a bit bigger.
So 250 maybe? Maybe 240?
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere in that range.
And you're 5'9". That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. It's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight.
Packed on. And then imagine the pressure on your heart and your blood pressure and then your organs, and then add that cocaine. If you can imagine, that adds levels of nightmarish pain that you can't imagine. And I was in terrible shape. I couldn't walk from here to there without sweating and having to take a seat. Like I couldn't move. If I could walk 5 minutes, that was a lot, to be honest. Like I couldn't do anything. Terrible, terrible shape. I was drinking and doing drugs all the time. Eating in Taco Bell every day, all the things you're not supposed to do, right? All the stuff.
Ultra-processed foods.
I do want to say that I love Taco Bell. This is not bad. I'm not trying to bash Taco Bell.
I am. I don't like Taco Bell.
I can't eat it anymore because it tears me up. But I love gummy bears and all that stuff. But I digress.
Who doesn't love gummy bears?
Who doesn't love a gummy bear?
Especially the Sour Patch ones.
Yeah. So
I love the Sour Patch Kids.
I'm in the hospital and my fingers and my whole arm is now, it's kind of resting this massive infection is internal, my whole body, but now it's found a home essentially in my left hand, and it starts kind of filling up like a water balloon and working
Right.
backwards. And so I have an orthopedic surgeon, and I will say his name, Dr. Welsh. He was freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to get lucky. He was leaving the hospital. He was off rotation, and he's like, well, actually, I'll just go stop in and see this last patient, because he was done for the day. Essentially comes in, and he's like, oh, okay, you need surgery, and I'm gonna do your surgery, even though again he was kind of off his rotation and things. And I see this because sometimes these are God wink moments for me, like, and I'll explain why I think that, because he turns out to be one of the best, if not the best, orthopedic surgeons in the United States, like just off the charts. Super cool dude. Comes in and he's like, we need to open up your hand to release this pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And if, you don't do this, this infection will persist, it will expand, and you will die. Like, and then they had put me on 2 towers of IVs with a mix of, what do you call it? Trying to get rid of the infection.
Mm-hmm. Just like cleansing, just trying to cleanse your system.
Yeah, so they were pounding me full of antibiotics and all kinds of things, but they did a blood sample, and because I was so terribly, terribly ill and so terribly infected, they couldn't isolate what they needed to do, essentially. So they literally had 2 towers. I was sitting in this bed. I had 4 IVs, essentially.
Wow.
So on either side, I had needles and 2 towers, and they would come in every few hours and change the bags, and they were just pounding me full of antibiotics and things like that to help fight the infection.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a mix of things that the infectious disease doctor couldn't figure out exactly the right path, and he was amazing too. So you can imagine now.
Yeah.
I had been up for a number of days. I'm now in this hospital. I got these IV towers in my arm, and this doctor just comes in, and we have to do surgery on your arm to release the pressure, or you're going to die. And the infectious disease doctor is like, you're probably not going to make it out of here.
Yeah.
So he's like, we give you about 3 days, maybe 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, again, I'm not only believing it, I'm panicking, because I'm like, I did this all to myself. Forget about why I did it, but this is 100% my fault. But being an alcoholic and cocaine addict, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, drinking 15 espressos a day.
Oh, wow.
Chasing everything you could chase, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that you could possibly chase.
Dopamine chase.
Whatever. Yeah. And I would fill myself up in the void with noise. And my noise was alcohol and drugs and cigarettes, and looking forward to the next event where I can do all those things socially instead of hiding in my garage doing it and shit like that. So it's now crashing down on me, and I'm still one of those people that and I'll get to this a little bit later too, but I never admitted anything was my fault. It was somebody else's fault. The world hates me, and all the bullshit that comes along with all the problems that you have. It couldn't possibly be me. It's not the 8 ball of cocaine a day I'm doing. It's everything else.
It's that victim mentality.
Yeah. And the ultimate victim, right? And any shortcut you could take, I took, and all the bullshit. So it's pretty crazy. But the doctor, they take me in, Dr. Welsh, and he says, we're going to go do this first surgery to release the pressure. And I'm going to just say bleed me, because I don't know what else to technically or medically call it.
Understood.
So they bring me down, and I didn't know this part, but they have a meeting with my wife, right? They wheel me down in the surgery, and they say to her, you have to sign this waiver, because if he doesn't bleed the right way in the right amount of time, this means the infection is so bad that we'll have to start amputating from finger to first knuckle, the second knuckle, to hand, to wrist, to elbow, to shoulder, until the blood flows appropriately. So of course she signs it, because they're like, if you don't do this, he'll die on the table. So again, now my wife has got this, hits her in the face with the reality of this, because when they're doing the conversation for you kind of bedside in the room, it doesn't quite hit the same way as it does when you're gurneyed into surgery, and now the doctor himself comes out to have a one-on-one conversation with you, who is the surgeon, to tell my wife these things, and then the nurse comes in with the paperwork prepped. So they're expediting these processes. And again, this is all foreign to us, because I haven't really been sick before, not like this, and all this other thing. So they do the surgery. They cut me. I don't make it. I don't bleed in time. But because this is the God wink moment, because it's Dr. Welch, he lets me go longer than this prescribed medical time to bleed. Because he's like, I think, give him a little bit, like a few more seconds. And sure enough, I made it. But come to find out, having talked to other orthopedic surgeons and other medical staff, that they're like, most doctors would never take that risk and would amputate because that's what medically they're supposed to do. But you happen to get exactly the right doctor that's willing to take this risk that didn't amputate your fingers, because the first thing should go would be your fingers, without exception. He doesn't do it. Get back up to my room. They stitch me up. They cut my hand in like 5 or 6 different places, my knuckles, all kinds of things. So I get back up to my room in a lot of pain now, because they just, they open me up and they bled me and they, whatever they're doing. No amputation. Still in a lot of pain, but the infection is so bad, it comes back. And what I mean is it settles again in my hand and my arm. They do a second surgery, which is, again, unheard of for my condition, how bad my infection is, the medical risk, all the bad stuff that happens to doctors if they take risks trying to do the right thing for a patient, as insurance companies, all the bad stuff that comes with that, which is probably a whole different podcast.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So the next day, they bring me down again, and Dr. Welch comes back, does the surgery a second time, cuts me again in different places. I don't make the time again. He takes another medical risk, essentially, gets me there. I make it, and somehow, some way, doesn't amputate. He's like, theoretically and medically speaking, we should have amputated you at least up to your left shoulder. So taking your whole arm. Doesn't do any of those things. I get back up to my room, and I realize now that this is crazy, right? This is all 100% my fault. I've done nothing to help myself ever. I've taken every shortcut. I've done every drug, trying to mask pain, hide pain, fake life, all the crap. And I get through the surgery, and I realize, and now when I'm in my room, I'm on these IV towers. I literally have 1 hour when I'm not on the towers, when they come and kind of change my sheets. I change out of my hospital gown. I stand up, go free of the towers without nurses' assistance to go to the bathroom, all of the things. And I'm like, and I'm extremely overweight. I can't breathe. Now I'm a number of days, it occurs to me, I'm a number of days alcohol, cocaine, nicotine, and caffeine free. And I'm like,
interesting.
This is my God wink. Like, because I'd survived 2 surgeries that I should have not gotten through, and I mean, I'm going to say unscathed. Physically speaking, I didn't have anything amputated, which I should have had. It didn't. Yeah, I'm whole, physically speaking. Mentally and emotionally, I'm anything but whole. I'm very far from it at this point. But I'm like, okay. So the nurses somehow, when they would come and do that, it'd be right around noon. So this is Chicago. You can imagine like spring-ish. Baseball season's kicked off. So it's not cold. It's not hot. It's kind of nice. They had this outdoor courtyard. So it was a courtyard inside the hospital walls, but it was outside. And I was able to, when they changed the towers, to throw on like my sweatpants and a sweatshirt and go walk around this little courtyard. And I thought, I'm going to go just get some fresh air and move around, because I'm essentially tethered to this bed with my IVs.
Right. And how many days at that point had it been?
It's got to be day 5.
Day 5.
I think, something like that. Because this is the other part of my recovery is I let things go. Sometimes, like, I don't harbor them too long anymore. Yeah. So things like number of days here, they go away. Sure. And I try to think of like the tops of the wave moments. Yeah. More than the kind of the painful details. Sure. So I think it's about day 5 for that. And my wife is there, and she's with me every minute of the day. My mom is at home with the kids for us. And so, give you an idea, open heart surgery patients are leaving the hospital in 3 days. This is day 5 for me. Right. To give you an idea for people listening, like the gravity of this. And I'm not trying to add weight like poor Anthony. I'm just saying, like, the doctors I am on constant vigilant watch. Nurses, doctors, my actual doctors themselves are making rotations to come and see me on a regular basis. They're not getting feedback from other medical professionals and things, which I guess is also unique, where normally they're busy enough where they'll take feedback from people on the floor.
Absolutely.
But they're actually, like, my surgeons and all those other very, very good doctors are coming to see me personally and spending a lot of time changing the bandages themselves to give you an idea. So that's the other piece. They would come in and Dr. Welch would actually physically change the bandages from my surgery where my hands were cut open to bleed me. I'll get back to that in a second. But so now when I get taken off the towers, I'm like, I'm going to take this opportunity. And now keep in mind, I am dazed and confused in a different way than I've ever been because I don't have alcohol in me. I don't have nicotine. I don't have caffeine. I don't have cocaine. So I'm going through withdrawals at unbelievable levels. It is the only way I can describe it is like living inside the pain and outside yourself, watching and feeling the pain at the same time. Everything hurts physically. Everything hurts emotionally. Everything hurts mentally. You're in the darkest, saddest, loneliest, ugliest corner of hell you can imagine. And I put myself there. But at the time, I wasn't saying that, right? I was like,
Sure.
F this and F that, and it's everybody else's
Poor
fault.
me.
Poor me.
Yeah.
Right? I got dealt a bad hand. This is BS. If my dad didn't do all the things, all the things.
Right.
So, but I'm like, for some reason, I'm like, I'm going to just go move around a little bit. And I'm going to say it was like, from a walking perspective, it probably took a healthy person to walk this track 15 seconds. You know, it wasn't very big. And I would walk it for about 5 minutes. That is about all I could take at very, very slow pace. And I'd have to sit, and they had little benches along the way, and I'd have to take breaks every like half of lap, sit there and breathe and keep, you know, and then I'd get up there and I'd be freaking exhausted. Back to my room, back on the towers, all of that. And then I would just be laying in my bed until the next event. The next event was, if it wasn't my walk, it was, they would come in and, you know, Dr. Welch would change my bandages. And unfortunately, as gentle as doctors are, the bandages have issues they get scabbed into. And when they would pull them off, like, it hurt. Like, I remember almost passing out a few times.
Really?
Because it hurt so bad. And then the throbbing pain of this infection isn't going away, because it's still so new, and the antibiotics and things that they've got in these towers aren't quite working well yet. But then about day 7,
yeah, that's interesting, because just if I can break in real quick, so you're going through a whole emotional roller coaster. In addition to that, so you have this infection.
Yeah,
it's obviously affecting you, and they're pumping you full of who knows what. All kinds of stuff, good stuff, right?
Whatever they're doing.
Whatever they're doing. But in addition to that, you're also battling withdrawals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could go into that a little bit, what does that feel like? Just the withdrawals.
It felt like walking through Dante's Inferno. It was
having to walk through hell to get through it.
Yeah. It was horrible, tragically bad. And now I am literally, not even metaphorically, I am chained to this bed with these IVs. I can't go or do anything, so I have to sit and wallow in it. But I was so beat up and so tired because of the surgeries and the infection and the emotional trauma and stress of it, that I could sleep intermittently and then wake up because of the pain. I couldn't move around if I rolled over. So the only way I can describe these withdrawals is everything hurt, everything sucked, and you're in agonizing pain. But the emotional, it felt like I had my head in a church bell that was being rung for just constantly. For now, this is, let's say, about 7 days. And I haven't gone 7 days without having cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, or nicotine since 8th grade.
Wow. So you were exploring. I was going to ask you about that, going into cocaine a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, of course.
I know very little about it. I've never really tried it.
Don't try it.
Yeah, I would never try it. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But at what age did you start with cocaine? And then in addition to that, when did you realize, I think I might have a problem?
Those are good questions. So the drinking was first and foremost from 8th grade all the way through college, post-college, and all of that. I didn't actually start cocaine until I'd gotten back in the bar, restaurant, club business after the markets crashed.
2008.
Yep. And then I started dabbling and playing with it pretty aggressively. In the cocaine just added, I can do all this drinking and smoking and staying up and hanging out and having fun for 2 days straight.
Right.
This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts out with a tiny little bit of cocaine, a fingernail's amount, gets you pretty far. And then all of a sudden you need 2 fingers.
Right.
And then all of
that
a sudden,
tolerance level.
Yeah, it goes quick.
And same with alcohol too. I mean, you develop a tolerance. I think it's for all drugs probably. You develop a tolerance level.
No doubt. No doubt.
Morphine, oxy, pick one.
Any of it. Yeah, more is better.
Yeah.
When it comes to that stuff. And
your body gets used to it. So it needs more for that dopamine rush. And then you get hooked on that. It's like, and marijuana is no different as well. I mean, these are all tools.
Yeah.
Marijuana is, of course, can't kill you. It's a little bit different, but it's the same kind of concept, but go ahead.
So it turns into this, you just need it constantly. So every time I would find reasons to, I said, cocaine was, I'll only have blow when I drink. And then what I would do is I'd find reasons to drink to have blow.
Yep.
And then it flips to where I'll just do blow all day and have drinks so that I don't appear like I'm doing cocaine all day, because there's certain tells. Of course, your body can't hide. And no matter how good you are at doing drugs and drinking, there are physical tells. The way you blink, the way you move your mouth and your lips, and how you twitch and how you respond and how you talk and your response, emotionally speaking, to many things. Cocaine rage is a very real thing.
Is it really? Is that a thing?
Oh,
I was going to add, let's
Yeah.
go into, I'm not familiar with cocaine. So there's cocaine rage, but what is another tell if somebody is got a cocaine problem? What's a tell?
So the ones that probably would go unnoticed to most people if you're not paying attention is how many times they go to the bathroom at any event because they're going to do bumps in the bathroom, whether that's at a restaurant or at a family event at the house or wherever it is. They go to the bathroom a lot. They're always escaping for a phone call. And what they're really doing is drugs. They have to plan escapes. I couldn't go or do anything anywhere without either having a hookup where I was going, get cocaine if I had to fly somewhere.
Really?
Oh, definitely.
It was that much of an addiction. Now, was it was it a physical addiction and a emotional addiction as well? It's both this.
It was a physical addiction, an emotional addiction, mental addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It was everything because it was it's like your safety net.
Made you feel safe.
Yeah.
Because you're used to it.
Because you're used to it.
Yeah.
And it turns you into the kind of person you hope to be or want to be, not that you are. And it makes you, it made me extroverted. And I was already what I thought was an extrovert.
Yeah, you are.
And
sure.
It turns out that I'm really an introvert who's good at pretending to be extroverted.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
So that's what the alcohol and the drugs gave me, is this ability to put on a persona and
courage,
kind of defend it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I can be confident playing this role, playing this avatar that I normally would not be comfortable playing.
That's right.
And I also know that when I play this role in Avatar, society sees me differently.
Yeah.
I'm fun.
They like me.
I'm exciting. They like me. And the ego starts to
always
talk. It's always the ego.
Absolutely.
I have this saying, it's a very controversial saying, if I can break in just for a second, and I use this in terms of food, but it goes with all of our vices, because we all have them. Yeah. We all have our vices. But to me, this tells me so much about a person. If you do not have control of your diet, you do not have control of your ego. If you do not have control of your ego, you are out of control. And that's most people.
Oh, yeah.
They live up here. It's materialism, consumerism. And it might not be cocaine. It may not be alcohol. It may not be marijuana. Maybe it's the foods. Yeah. It's all these ultra processed and processed foods. Or maybe it's swiping the credit card, because you're receiving that same science mechanism, which is the dopamine effect. Mm-hmm. You're getting dopamine from the brain. It's saying, okay, you're like, oh, I feel great. I love this. Let's buy another one. Here's another credit card. And it's just, once you sit with yourself and do the work that you have done, and then you can become the observer of the mind and the ego and be able to realize like, okay, these are my toxic traits. This is what I can do to help myself. And it's not always, I tell people, it's like, take ownership of you. Take ownership of your mind and be able to manage the mind, because if you don't have control of the mind, you're just on autopilot and you're living in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is where most of us live. Like, for example, when we go to the grocery store, we don't even think about it. We just go.
Yeah.
That's us living in autopilot in the subconscious mind. You're just living and blah, 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 doing this and doing this. But once you slow down and realize like, okay, I got a problem. Maybe I need to fix my personality. Maybe I need to realize that I need to adjust my own toxic traits and vices, and not be judgmental to others that have vices like we all do. We all have vices, but who are we to judge others? And I say this specifically for the lay persons out there who are not doing this kind of work, because they'll judge individuals like you and I for having challenges with these different substances. And I've never done cocaine or anything like that. And I've never had a problem with alcohol either. But for me, my vice was marijuana. I had to get that under control. Right. And then once you get that under control and you realize like, okay, the ego wants all these things. The ego wants a new purse. The ego wants that food down at, this artificial food that's completely, I call it human dog food that they're feeding us. The ego wants that because it's going to release that dopamine. But is it in my best interest for me? And most of the time it's not. And once you take ownership of your own life and you live in alignment, life becomes easier.
Yeah, I think that part of my happiness comes from the positive routine that I've built, that I've earned after having gone through, since the 8th grade, all the pain and the tragedy that my fault, 100% own every bit of it, every second of it, because I chose the shortcut or the bad path every single time, not once in a while. If there was a shortcut, I took it. I never studied. I never took time to try to get good at anything. I quit on myself. I always had an excuse because, a party or some bullshit, right? It was always that. And that kind of chaos, I lived in that chaos that I didn't know anything but the chaos.
Right. It's comfortable to you.
Comfortable to me. And the pain, the tragedy, the agony, the emotional outlet of all of that noise, that's what I surrounded myself in every minute. And unfortunately, I burned down a lot of bridges and houses and ruined people's lives that I profusely apologized for.
Congratulations.
That's
growth, my friend. Yeah, that's true growth. All of us are flawed creatures. All of us.
Yeah. And I was in such a bad place, in such a bad state, and I did a lot of bad things. I wasn't physically violent or angry, meaning I didn't like pick fights and physically speaking, things like that. But I never put the time, the effort, or the work in to do the right thing emotionally to people in my life that I loved and cared for. And it all caught up with me. And I'm 7 days in this hospital. I can't literally walk one lap around this little courtyard. I'm taking breaks. And to my wife's credit, she was there with me every second of the day.
Thank you.
And yes, wonderful. And she should have, real terms, chucked me years before and didn't, which.
Thank you. It's okay. Take this time. Thank you. Women are beautiful creatures.
Yeah.
When we in our darkest times is when relationships are tested.
Definitely.
And so take this moment to thank her. And her name is Jennifer, right? Yeah. And thank you, Jennifer, for saving this man and being with this man and seeing the value in you. She's beautiful.
She still deals with my crap to this day, which is great.
It's beautiful, brother.
So I'm 7 days in. And the doctors are still like, you're not quite over the hump, meaning we don't know if you're going to make it from this infection. But they're sticking with me. They're fighting the fight. I'm doing these little walks because now mentally I decided, F this. This is my opportunity to do the right thing for once in my life. I'm going to fight. I'm going to make it out of here. And that little thing, that little tiny moment where you're not going to take your own shit anymore, or you're sick of your own shit, gives you the will and the want to fight. and getting up every day where all of a sudden my day became, I was so looking forward to my hour off the towers, I used to say.
Hour off the towers.
Yeah. And go do this walk. And Jen was there with me, and we would take this walk, and I just kept going. And then I get through, I think like day 9 or something. The doctors are like, look, your blood panel is showing that you're winning this fight now. Now, again, this isn't just a mental and emotional thing. Like, they're doing all the medical things they need to do, the surgery, they're coming in and they're making sure that it's staying at bay. I don't have to have any more surgeries. They feel like that has gone the right way after all the time and effort that they put in. I'm doing these, kind of believing that I can get through this. In that little thing, I would say to anybody in any challenge, not just dealing with alcoholism and drug addiction, but believing that you're going to win the fight, or that you're going to win the fight and do the fight with everything you've got, changes everything. And then I started to appreciate the pain and appreciate what the pain was trying to teach me. And again, I don't want to sound crazy, but what started to happen is when I mentioned it felt like my head was in a church bell being rung constantly, and then getting body blows from like demons the whole time for days at a time.
Sure.
Because my body's going through this withdrawal. I started to try to appreciate the lessons that were being kind of delivered, but also that I put myself here.
Sure.
So embrace this for once in your life. Embrace everything that's going on. Own everything that's going on. Take and be accountable to everything in your life, every pain, all the misery walking around, and everything about what's going on right now. So I actually get past the point where they're like, we think you're going to make it. Like, we feel like you've gotten past this kind of point of what we thought was a point of no return, where you would not make it out of here to
Right.
You're going to make it. So I ended up staying, I think, 11 or 12 days. And again, keep in mind that open heart patients leave the hospital in about 3 days. And now I'm 11 or 12 days in. Finally get out, lost a ton of weight because I'm in the hospital. Now I'm 12 days, I'm going to say sober.
Okay.
I'm not mentally sober. I'm not emotionally sober, but physically, I haven't drank, I haven't drugged, I haven't smoked, and I haven't had espresso at that level. So I get home, and I remember on the way home, I was scared to death. I mean, absolutely scared to go back to the places that I would drink and drug, and like the routines and things that were there for all of that. And I decided on the way home, like, I'm not going to smoke anymore, drink anymore, drugs anymore. I'm not going to drink coffee at that level anymore. I'll get to that because there's components of that for recovery that are important. Get home, and I'm numb at this point because I'm scared to death. But I'd walked, keep in mind that, and I would do a little bit more every day, a little bit more. So instead of like 2 laps, I would do 2.5 or something. And I kept trying to build on that. So by the time I was leaving, I was doing maybe 15 minutes of walking just for that hour for the day. And it was exhausting, and I would be a sweaty mess after I get it to the room. And get home, tell my wife, I said, I can't, I have to keep just walking. I'm going to just keep doing that. So every single morning, get up, and I lived on this neighborhood that had this cul-de-sac that was about a mile around from my front door. If I went right and walked this cul-de-sac, not a cul-de-sac, but this road around my house in the neighborhood was about a mile, almost exactly. So I'll just say a mile. Walk the mile. And she made me put that little if you fall down thing on your watch, the alert gets sent, all of those things. So, and I would walk 1 lap in the morning, get up super, super early. I remember this, I would get some water, and I would have a coffee, but I'd have 1 coffee, regular Americano coffee. And I would read Tony Robbins. Then when the sun would come up, I would take my walk. I'd bundle up if it was a little chilly, and I'd take my walk. And I'd come in, and then I'd help, the kids get up and do their thing and all of that stuff. And I'm like, I'm fully going to participate in every moment of my life going forward. And I'm never going to hide or avoid or evade. I'm not going to blame anybody. This is all me. I'm going to own everything, no matter what. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to wake up early, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to this routine to get better. And I'm going to do all the things that I have to do to get better. And I didn't know what the hell that was. Like, I had no idea what this meant at all. Just that.
And you're scared.
I am scared to death. I'm in pain.
Yeah.
I have a nurse that has to come to the house to change my bandages, to make sure that all the things are right. And they put, it's a PICC line. And they would come, and every single day I would have to take an IV at home to inject the medication that I needed, because I needed more than I could orally take.
Oh, I see.
So they would have this PICC line, and I would have to have it pumped in, essentially, this liquid IV. And I wasn't on a tower because I did the PICC line, so I would still have to do all those things. And go to my appointments a couple times a week with the doctor, not at the hospital, but at their offices now. And I'd still do my little walk. And then after some time, I'm like, I'm going to do 2 laps.
Nice.
And then I'm going to do 3 laps. And I went from not being able to walk 15 minutes straight without having to sit down 3 or 4 or 5 times to I could walk 5 miles in the morning, which I did. And I would break it up sometimes to do like a morning, an afternoon, and then an evening walk. And then I would add more time to each of those walks. And then I was able to walk indefinitely almost, because I was in pretty good walking shape. I hadn't drank, I hadn't smoked, I hadn't done cocaine. I've been eating better, going to bed at the right time, reading anything I can get my hands on, listen to motivational speakers on my walk. I dedicated myself to learning everything I could about why I did what I did. I found a sponsor. I did all the things to get sober. And again, I was accountable for everything. And that is the biggest thing. You have to confront this directly. Can't hide behind bullshit. You can't allow yourself to bullshit yourself.
Right.
Full ownership. You lose a lot of friends. You lose family. And because you're so different and changed, and you're saying and doing things that are so foreign to their ears from your mouth.
Now you're a weirdo.
You're a weirdo, or you don't fit into the scene that you were in before. I didn't go to the same places and do the same things. And your real friends, by the way, and family, they stick with you.
Absolutely.
And that's also good and positive and cleansing. You get rid of lots of dead weight.
Right.
Which is also wonderful.
Yes, sir.
And I went from this person chasing the nice car, the nice house, and all the bullshit to this living minimalistically in myself, believing that the goodness of life comes from the things that are little and simple, like reading a book, having a coffee, spending time with your wife, taking a walk. Doesn't matter what kind of car, none of that noise, it's just noise and nonsense. And I went then from the walk, I added bike riding, and I would walk and bike. Then I would walk, bike, and box. And now I've been doing CrossFit 3 years.
Yeah,
and
brother.
I'm 54, and I think at 54, I'm in pretty good shape.
You're in great shape, brother.
So
You're in
to be able
great
to do
shape.
what I can do now, thinking 7 years ago, not a chance in hell.
You've changed your entire life. Everything about it.
Changed. We moved.
Everything.
I changed everything. But most importantly, the thing that changed the most are my routines and my thought process about who I was and why I was the way that I was. Once I took ownership of that and said, this is all my fault. So because it was my fault, I could fix it or do the work to fix it. I'm always in the process of fixing. I don't let myself get cocky and say things like, I got this. I never say I got this. I always say, well, I feel good. I'm having a good day.
Yeah.
But I'll never say I got this, because this is kind of the icky alcoholic addict mind, where it wants to convince you that things are under control. It wants to convince you that you've got it. It wants to convince you that you don't have to pay attention anymore because you've got it. So I'm very careful about being the loudmouth asshole that I used to be. I'm very cautious about emotional responses that they still come out sometimes because they're in there. But I've tried to learn to think before I speak, and being a Chicago Italian, sometimes that's hard.
It's okay. I think you have to show yourself grace, though, for that. You know, we're all flawed creatures. I'm going to say something dumb 10 minutes from now, and you're just like, okay, it's a work in progress. We're always just working in progress.
And that's the beauty that I've learned of life, is that you have to enjoy the challenge of it. You have to enjoy the process of it. Build routines that work for you and hold yourself accountable to that routine.
Yeah.
I get up every day. I love to go to, well, in this case, the CrossFit gym, but before that, it was the boxing gym, and I would go at 5 a.m. But I love the 5 a.m. workouts. I love getting up early, getting to the gym, checking that box mentally and emotionally to earn the day. Because I think that putting yourself through that physical routine to the struggle, in a good struggle.
Absolutely.
Where, Russ, he
Yeah.
puts great workouts together, and he does
absolutely.
what he can to kind of, and I love that. And I love the community that I've become a part of. Not just the CrossFit community, but my sober community and my family community and my friends who are my real friends community. And I don't tolerate nonsense. Listen, if people step out of line in my life, I'm graceful. I let you do that. You can be crazy if you want to, but you can be crazy over there.
100%.
I'm not, and you're cool. We're cool. I don't want you to starve, but you can't eat with me at my table now.
Exactly, brother.
And I'm
boundaries.
not mad at,
boundaries.
100%. And I've got to be very, very cautious.
Sure.
Because the second I take my eye off of my purpose, then I know the demon is right there. And I mean, and there are days where I have to figure out, why am I having such a tough day? And then I have to think about why this is emotionally a bad day or what's going on, and put the time in. And then, but Jocko Willing, freedom comes from discipline.
It does.
And it never made any sense to me. And then when I went through all this, that's the beauty of the routine, is that if you just, motivation is great, I guess, when you get started, but it comes down to the discipline. I go to work out whether I want to or not. 100%. There's lots of days I'm like, I don't want to do this today.
Absolutely.
But I go. And I say that because hold yourself accountable to that routine, and you can own the pain the right way and try to figure out what's causing it that day. Sure. Why am I off? Why do I want to do cocaine so fucking bad today that I can't stand myself?
You feel it.
Oh, fuck yeah, man.
So if you feel that, what do you do to regulate yourself? So if you're feeling like, okay, something's off, I'm not feeling right. Maybe you already went to the gym and you're just having an off day, and that ego is like, hey, just take a little bit. Yeah. What do you do to regulate yourself?
So I have a couple different kind of off ramps. Reading a book, just forcing myself to just sit down in the moment. But the main thing, forget about what I do. It's mentally allowing myself to feel that. I don't run from it. I don't hide from it. I don't try to make it go quick. I just let it be and
observe it. Observe the tension.
Yeah, I'm not going to embrace isn't the right word, because that's like I'm accepting it in a negative way. Well, how do I say this? I let it happen how it happens. And the only thing I don't do is I don't have a drink, don't have a cigarette, don't do a line, no matter what. Those are the only things I can't do. And then sometimes I go for a walk on the beach. Sometimes I go for a walk in the neighborhood. Yeah. Sometimes I just do push-ups or sit-ups. Sometimes I read a book. Sometimes I just talk to my wife. Sometimes I call a friend. Sometimes it just depends on what I think I need at the moment to scratch that itch, because something's going on, and I've gotten pretty good at not only allowing it, but feeling it coming. I can tell my wife, I'll say, honey, I'm starting to get
a little antsy,
a little messed up.
Yeah.
And she knows me well enough to know where she'll just, cool, do your thing.
Yeah.
And she's very good. She's been great about that for my whole life. But for that moment, like sometimes I'm like, I just have to go for a walk. And sometimes I go for a walk because I just feel like taking a walk. But sometimes with purpose, I'll go grind it out. But I've learned, I've got my sponsor to call. So I've got my positive off ramps. And that's the difference for me. When I was drinking and drugging, that was my off ramp.
Right.
And that's how I filled the void, and slamming coffee and doing all the bullshit. And I've loved to read. I love to play Dungeons and Dragons. I love fantasy novels. I love
it's fun stuff.
It's great. I love food. I love spending time with people. And I was avoiding once you become so into your addiction, because it takes over everything, dude. I mean, it fucking takes over everything to the point where there is nothing else but when you're going to get your next bag of blow. And it's scary, man. And you go to some fucked up places and you do fucked up shit and you think terrible, terrible things. And in the middle of it, you think that everything is great, and it's not. And then with the routine, and becoming aware and putting in the work of, why am I doing this? Why did I do that? And it's all usually comes down to, and I say this, I'm going to put this in quotes, usually, you're hiding from something. You're running from some pain. You're dealing with some pain or some trauma. And I was doing all those things, but I was also not accountable to anything. I was a piece of shit. Like I did whatever the hell I wanted to do, whenever the hell I wanted to do it, gave zero regard to the outcome. I gave zero regard to the effect on other people, nothing. I gave a fuck about anybody or anything, which is really bad.
Sure. Yeah.
So
give yourself grace, brother. You're in survival mode. And to go down that a little bit, if I may. So Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a leading trauma expert in the world, a fantastic individual, and wonderful book. The Myth of Normal is a book. I haven't read it all, but it's a very interesting read. But he talks about what he believes is the root cause of addiction. And his belief is that all addictions at the cause of that is childhood. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel loved. I didn't have that support system that I needed. So when we don't have these things, when we're not loved as children, when perhaps it's a violent household, perhaps the parents are just not around, they're busy or whatever the case may be, that we start to seek for external validation, someone to show us love, someone to show us safety, someone to show us that we mean something. They see us, they value us. So when we don't have that as children, there's a void.
Yeah.
And as adults, we then begin to try to fill that void because perhaps that void is still empty, even though we have been, or you've been married, or you have children, or whatever the case may be. But again, these are roles that we play in life. Like, for example, you play a father, you play this profession, but it's not truly who you are. You've been taught to play these roles because society told you to play these roles, but it's not who you are. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I asked him, like, who are you? And he's like, well, I'm this and I'm that. I'm like, no. Who are you?
Right.
And
it's
then
a tough question to answer.
It's a tough question to answer because we've been taught to play these roles as fathers, but it's not who you are.
Yeah.
You play that role out of society, and because it's what we do as men, we play these roles, but it's not who you are. And it doesn't mean that because you're a father and you have this profession, there's still a void because you're playing these roles that is not you. You're not living a life that's authentic to you. You're living a life for your family. You're providing for your family, providing safety and security and all these other things. But that void is still there. And then individuals who perhaps had a different upbringing in terms of childhood, maybe they didn't have those types of environments. Maybe they had a loving home.
Yeah.
Maybe they had that healthcare system and support system. But when you don't have those, you seek for external things.
Oh, yeah.
And then once you get older and you go through an event like you have gone through, you're able to realize that, okay, I have some work to do. And usually that work, most of us will wait until we blow ourselves up.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh my God.
Now I see it.
Yeah, you hear these stories when you're younger, like these midlife crises, right? You're just like, they're real. Okay, but why? Why are they real? And why does it happen to specifically individuals, that's still going, right? Individuals in our 40s. Okay, why? It's because we've been playing these roles. Playing a role.
Oh, yeah.
It's not who we are. And there's a great concept for this, if I may, and it's called, I'm not sure if you've heard this term, the dark night of the soul. Have you ever heard that term?
I haven't.
Me too was at one of my worst moments here in this home, and I was just like, it's like I give up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the dark night of the soul, a good way to describe that is you have reached your bottom, like your total freaking bottom. And so much so is that you are tired of your own crap.
Yeah.
You've been sitting in it. You haven't made any changes. You're in this loop. And finally, your soul says, enough.
Yeah.
And normally the body will follow. The body's leading you and saying, as it did for you, hey, this is not working for me, brother. You're right, sister, and you've got to make a change. And conversations like this are needed to help the younger brothers and sisters out there, because you don't have to wait until you implode. You can begin to do some of this work now if you realize and sit with yourself in silence. Figure out what's going on up here. Sit with yourself to realize your own toxic traits. Okay. And it's a process. And for some, it's fast. For some, it might be a much longer process. And for you, at the age of 46, when this all occurred, and you're 12 days in, finally leaving the hospital, what was that mental pull like for you from the cocaine? And I actually wanted to get into these other substances too, because you hit the nail on the head. And I really want to pound the table on this one. Every single substance we put in our body matters.
Yeah.
Everything. Even the ones where we deem them to be necessary, such as caffeine, which is the biggest drug on the planet, frankly. But there's a dopamine response to caffeine, right? And, we are affecting our brain's function and process by essentially stunning the adenosine receptors, which is what caffeine does. Adenosine receptor fills up with, throughout the day, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it says, hey, Anthony, I'm tired. Time to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
Caffeine prevents that. It stops the adenosine receptor from going to the brain. So, and that's why it's so important to realize that the nicotine, the vaping, whatever it is for people's, whatever their substance is, the alcohol, the marijuana, the cocaine, ultra processed foods, I put those in the same category as recreational drugs.
Oh, definitely.
I really do.
Without question.
Without question, they are recreational drugs. So, and I'd like to, really pound this down too, is like, if you're an individual out there and you are judging individuals for having an addiction to alcohol, having an addiction to marijuana, or pick your substance, right? You are no better than the person next to you, because you yourself are addicted to ultra processed and processed foods. And 74% of adult Americans are obese or overweight. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Oh, definitely.
So let's go back to, I'll tie this back. Let's go back to that 12th day. You're finally getting out. What are you feeling from all those substances? And then go into like how nicotine was affecting you, how caffeine was affecting you, if you would, please.
I felt like the weight of every bad decision, every pain in my entire life was resting on my head, on my shoulders, and in my soul. Like, you feel utterly defeated, and your brain and your body are trying to tell you that the only way out is to have a line, a drink, or a cigarette, or 2 shots of espresso, or whatever. Those are my buckets. And if you don't, you're gonna fail. Like your body tries to convince you, so that weight is overwhelming. And then you're not. I wasn't used to fighting that fight emotionally and mentally. I always gave in. I never resisted anything. So all of me was pulling in that direction, and I had to essentially, metaphorically speaking, turn my phone off, so I wasn't getting the calls, the texts, and the invites to go do things with people that, through no fault of their own, right? This is normal stuff. Call Anthony, he'll go out, that kind of thing. So I had to cautiously keep my phone at a distance so I didn't fall into the trap, and I had to make sure that I was aware of what was going on and then turn that on. So it's kind of like a toothache that I kept breathing in so I could feel it.
Right.
And almost, I'm going to say enjoy the pain, because there's nothing enjoyable about it, but make myself always aware of it. So as soon as I caught myself not feeling the pain, I got really anxious, like something is wrong. So I had to live in that agony and figure out, don't run from this. Let this be, settle. So this, all the weight of a lifetime of trauma, tragedy, bad decisions, bad choices. I landed here because I put myself here, rests on top of you. And then everything in you says, just have a drink, you'll be fine. Have a wine, you'll be fine. Have a cigarette, you'll be fine. I'm dealing with all 3 of those things at the same time. And now I've removed coffee.
So, good for you, yeah.
And
that's a huge accomplishment, man. It's the biggest drug on the planet is coffee.
So I had 4 things I was dealing with.
Wow. So you don't drink coffee at all now?
No. I do. I have 1 coffee in the morning, Americano,
right. Yeah.
And then I'll have called cafe con panna, which is a little espresso with a little whipped cream in the afternoon, just 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like my little break in the afternoon, and that's all I have. Or when I used to like have 12 espressos a day. I mean, to give you an idea.
12.
So there's a big difference. And
Yeah.
I had to be very careful about controlling my caffeine because I was replacing drugs and the alcohol and the cigarettes with coffee. So I had to say, get rid of that because that was becoming my replacement drug.
Swapping one for the other.
Swapping.
Gotcha. That's the ego again.
Yeah,
I
it's
need
very,
that
very
because
real.
you feel that dopamine,
Yeah.
you feel the coffee, you feel the tremble a little bit. You're like,
All
I
day,
like it.
every day. Yeah. And it scratched that itch. So this is the best way I could I felt hopeless. I was scared. I was out of shape. I was fat. I was mentally broken, emotionally broken, physically broken. I hit rock bottom really hard, but this wasn't the first rock bottom. This was the last rock bottom. I had hit rock bottom a few times before, but I bounced and like, fuck it. I'll be fine. Just keep drinking. It'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments where you are so emotionally broken that I didn't know what to do. So this final one was the one where I bounced and it stuck. And I remember I was on one of my early walks when I still would just do one lap. I could barely make, and it would take me to walk a mile. I mean, it was a good 20, 30 minutes at least.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So super slow paced. Again, my wife made me put that if you fall down, you can't get up alarm on my watch.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
It's really funny. And I was 3/4 through my walk and it was a rainier day. And that was the other thing. I committed. I didn't care. I told myself, I don't care what the weather is. I'm taking this walk. I'm taking this bike ride. Nothing's going to get in the way of me doing this. There were some days when it was so tragically bad or so tragically cold that I would walk my mile in my basement in a tiny little, if you can imagine. So I would do however many laps that was. And I didn't have a big basement. I just cleared a little path.
Good job,
and I just walked inside. I refused anything to get in my way. But that came a little bit later, meaning that commitment started right away. But the weather was nice enough where it didn't get in the way. But in Chicago, right? So things happen weather-wise. But I was on this walk 3/4 of the way through. It was a rainy day. It was cold. I was freezing. My face was wet. I was kind of soaked through a little bit. And I thought, I was scared, right? I get emotional with this one.
It's okay.
But like, I'm never going to make it. And there was kind of my first moment having left the hospital where I thought, fucked. I'm never going to make it. I'm just not. Because everything that I've done up to that point in my life was not making it. It was the shortcut. It was just fucking quit. It doesn't matter, whatever. And I thought, I'm going to fucking die because I'm a pussy, because I'm going to quit on myself, because I'm not going to be committed to do this, selfish piece of shit. And I was really scared. And I say the rainy day because I stopped walking 3/4 and I was just standing there and I'm like, fuck. This is like my first, I guess, my loneliest moment, I think. And I remember excuse me.
It's okay. You're both tearing up here a little bit.
I remember the sky opened up a little bit, just a patch. And the sun just beamed down kind of just where I was standing, like right on me. And I thought, well, if this isn't like a God wink, then what is a God wink? And I just thought, that was that was my dad and my grandma and grandpa on both sides, and my sister and my family in heaven. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time. Safe space, brother.
Giving me kind of the hope and the strength to continue to fight the fight, and almost say, like, in a way, you're gonna make it. And that was the moment that I knew that if I just continued doing the work, no matter how hard it got, no matter how miserable it got, that I will make it. And I haven't looked back since. Like, I've had tough days. I've had moments where, like, son of a bitch, like, I really want to have a drink. I want to do this. I want to do that. But I think about that moment all the time. I think I made it through that moment, which, in spite of all the shit, that second when I stopped on that walk was, if there was a moment to break, that was going to be the moment I was going to break and give in the wrong way.
Sure.
And because I didn't, because that sunshine came down from my loved ones, God, and
they're watching over us.
I was at peace with the pain. I was at peace with the process. I was at peace with the struggle, which, that's the other thing. Like, I've learned to not enjoy the pain, but understand what the pain is trying to tell me, and not seek out the pain, but not run from the pain anymore.
Sure.
And let the pain do what it's supposed to do, which, there's a reason you have pain. You have to learn how to deal with it, find the cause, and try to fix it. And it's as simple as, if, you're overweight, then maybe eat better and exercise, and being overweight and obese goes away.
Right.
So that competing dialogue exists and that's why I will say what I love about CrossFit is that it's almost more of a mental workout.
Absolutely.
Than the physical. The physical workout, of course, it's real but once you commit to the workout and doing the workout, you can go slow, just don't stop.
Right.
And sometimes I stop and take longer breaks, and Russ is like, dude, you're taking too long of a break. But in a good way.
Of
right?
course.
And I love that. And so
he's
that's
motivating.
the part, like Ken, I hope they're okay me mentioning their first names on this. There was a day I was having a real hard time, and there was a ton of burpees, and I was just standing there, and Ken is working out next to me, and he's doing his thing, and he's like, hey, don't let your mind win.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, CrossFit's a perfect metaphor, I think, for being committed, doing the work. Don't cherry pick workouts. Come and do the workout, and go at the pace that you need to go, but don't quit. Finish the workout. The time runs out, but don't quit. Like, it's really a wonderful thing, and that's true for, I think, anything. Just enjoy the process of it. Like,
absolutely.
I'm never. I mean, as far as like being good at it, I'm far, far from it. But I love going. I love the challenge. I love the work, and it's become such a wonderful part of my life in the morning. And being a minimalist and living simply and cooking as much as possible from scratch, all of those things have become part of who I am now. And trying to be a good dad and a good husband, good friend, a good son. And by good, I mean being honest with myself, being honest with the people in my life, and avoiding or not inviting chaos. Like, I am very careful about going and doing things that are a little bit too close to the razor's edge. Like, I know that with the holiday season, there's lots of invites to parties and celebrations, and I'm grateful for those, but I have to have escape routes planned where if it starts to get a little itchy for me, I have to leave. Not because I don't love the people I'm with, but
you know yourself.
I know myself, and one bad second can ruin. And if I go back, I'm dead.
6 years.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like, I'll hit it so hard, there'll be a little grease spot on the pavement where I was.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing and being honest and true with you. And you know yourself, and you're doing the work, brother. It's a testament to who you are today. And
well, thank you. I appreciate, and I love being here. And I hope this was helpful and informative, because I try not to make these conversations about me as much.
It's supposed to be about you.
It's
supposed to be about you. And so as you heal and you go through your process and your journey and you share your stories, it's beneficial to other human beings, because you will inspire someone else. This will get out. And if one person is touched by your story, that's what matters the most. And we're all here just to lift each other up. And all of us are just flawed creatures.
We are flawed. And that's the beautiful thing, really. I love my life now. Like, people say, well, don't you wish you could go back to when you were 18 or not? Absolutely not. I love the moment that I'm in my life now.
Good.
What I've earned. I'm grateful for every second of it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that addictions gave me.
Sure.
That if I didn't go through and have that rock bottom moment, I wouldn't be where I'm in right now. I'd still be kind of rumbling around with all that noise and chaos in my life. So there's a reason and a purpose for all of that. And I don't take anything for granted. I hold myself accountable. I live my life with as much joy as I can. I have bad days like everybody, bad moments, bad weeks, but I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do cocaine, and I don't blame anybody for anything. If it's my fault, it's my fault. And I try to find ways to make it my fault, not in a flagellating kind of way, but because then I can work on fixing it. I can work on understanding it. I can work on improving it. Blaming people for shit that goes on is chaos. And the only thing I would say is I have to be very careful too. I have to tune out certain things. I can only read the news. I don't like watching the news because I think that now they get glamour and points for being the most crazy, ridiculous news report out there. And if you consume the news all day, I do think it has a mental effect.
100%.
It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Like,
yeah.
I have to be very careful. I don't invite
the chaos,
the chaos of the darkness in. And I think the news and the media and social media and stuff, if you don't try to, controlling it is not the right word, but maybe have the right dosage of those things. Very dangerous.
Yeah, I think a good. Thank you for sharing. And it's a beautiful sentiments in terms of protecting yourself. And with what's going on in this crazy world, you got to do that.
Yeah.
And so I always tell my kids, like, be aware and observant of what's going on in this crazy world. Just don't live in it.
Yeah.
Right. And the people that do live in it, that's okay. That's for them. And, every person is here to serve a role. And for some, it's to inspire others you can kick this addiction. I can, let me teach you and show you what I've been through and learn from the challenges that I've had in my life and how I overcame addiction and all these things that were so much challenges in your life in terms of childhood, parents, all the different alcohol modalities that you stated. And then there's other roles for some people where they'll try to, and it's okay for them, is that they'll be in the news and then they might want to try to make a difference in the world. And I get that too.
Yeah.
I totally get that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And, do you, as long as you're being honest with you and you're being true to you, I think that's what matters most. And a lot of us, again, are playing these avatars.
Yeah.
They're not, really living a life that's, really true to them, but that's okay,
Yeah.
But I wanted to go back and talk about the different things. So coffee was definitely a challenge as well.
Yeah.
And then the nicotine too. And specifically because I'm very sensitive to nicotine. I don't do nicotine. I guess it's Dr. Andrew Huberman, who is a neuroscientist, will tell you that nicotine is very good for your creative mind.
Really?
Yeah. But not the American nicotine. But here's what he does. So, and I've actually started to implement this, I think it was about maybe 2 months ago. But what Dr. Andrew Huberman would do is he would buy the Nicorette pack of gum, and he would just take half of a Nicorette and chew that for about once or twice a week, he said, because it's for creativity. And nicotine also provides some different mental stimuli for the mind. And this is true in terms of science. So nicotine's not, again, the way we do it and package it in a Marlboro, which is loaded with who knows how many contaminants, sure, that's probably not the best case. But there are the natural nicotine, which is available. It's called Mapacho, and that's from Peru, where, this is where tobacco is normally grown, how the good Lord put it on this earth for us.
Yeah.
And so you can pulverize that, and that is real tobacco. And when you start to get into the spiritual community, which I have been part of for the last 3 years, there are different modalities that you can do with the nicotine to bring you some inner peace, to bring you some creative thought process in here, but also as a cleansing mechanism as well. And that is called hape. Hape is a pulverized, again, mapacho with some other plants. It's all plant-based, right?
Yeah.
And so there are different benefits for these medicines, and I do, in my mind, I do consider natural things that are really natural, such as nicotine, no mapacho, or cannabis. I won't want to call it marijuana. It's really cannabis. There are some medicinal benefits to that as well that I have found. Now, these are tools and instruments for us to use, but they can be abused.
Yeah.
Absolutely abused. And that's where, once you start to do the work, sit with yourself. I like to sit with myself in silence, do breath work and meditation, and really begin to become that observer. So I know that, okay, and at the end of the day, like, okay, Armando, let's do a recap of the day.
Yeah.
How successful were you? Did you abuse any of your substances? Did you meet your day-to-day goals in terms of, working on this project that I'm working on now? All these different things. And then, so what works for me is, perhaps marijuana late at night for that creative mind to calm down, to get out of here, but get into the body a little bit. So there are some benefits to some of those things, but it all comes as a tool.
Yeah.
And if you abuse a tool, nothing good's going to happen. It doesn't matter what the tool is. It just doesn't matter. So, but going into your challenges, you just get out of the hospital, your wife you've got a great support system. You're starting to go work through all of this. What was that first year like once I guess really, let me ask a better question. After you had that moment, you felt the ancestors, you felt your parents watching over you, you felt the love that they were given to you here. And it inspired you to continue the fight.
Yeah.
For the next year, what was that like for you? Did you have challenges staying on that routine, or was like, no, I have hit rock bottom. This has happened for me for a reason. The God wink moment was for a reason. Where did it kind of go from there?
So the first year, I think they call it in the recovery community the pink cloud year, where
I've heard that
everything
term.
feels great.
Yeah,
this is wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't believe that nobody else is doing this. Let me spread the gospel of how great this is.
I know, right?
And so
you.
you have a lot of that. I
Yeah.
had a lot of that, and I tried to be very aware of not evangelizing every chance I got. I was very cautious.
Good job.
I tried to be cautious of it.
That's such a great term.
It
is. Yeah, I get it, brother. Like, let me save everybody.
I
know the
you.
answer.
You don't know how much help you need, but I'm here to help you. And I was very, I had to kind of tone some of that down. And my wife is also very good. And some of my friends were very good about politely giving me the, maybe chill kind of thing, which is, you need some of that, which is really nice.
Yeah, 100%.
But I knew it was fraught with challenges every day, but I was on such emotional and mental high. And first time I'm actually physically clean for this long. Like, I didn't know if this is how it's supposed to feel.
Right.
Is it supposed to be this good? Is it hurt? Because I was also physically in pain from all the walking and the exercise and things that my body, again, was absolutely foreign to. So I had that, but this emotional clarity was very strange, and spiritual clarity, because I was owning everything and working through things and having meaningful, direct conversations with people about my faults and how I had done wrong or wronged them, in a good way, not an abusive way, in an apologetic ownership kind of way. So I was going through a lot of those things. So all of these moments were brand new to me, all these feelings. And so again, this is the other part of the addict mind, is everything can quickly become an addiction, even working out.
Yes, sir.
Where I even had to slow that down, where I was doing, 3 walks or 3 bike rides a day, and it was consuming my day with the walks and the bike rides and everything else. So I've gotten to a point, I believe, where I have the right pace for that in a good way, and I fill my day with other wonderful things. So that first year is trying to control this roller coaster that's off the tracks. And it's for the first time you get that positive pit in your stomach and trying to figure out who I am now. Meaning, I'm not the drugged up, coked up, drunk guy, life of the party anymore. And I was this extroverted, boisterous, loud person. So I had to learn, like, who am I? And I've come to realize through work that I really am introverted. I am not extroverted. I love to talk to people and I like to have conversations, but I like to do so in a quieter tone and in a quieter setting and in a controlled setting. I like it to be quiet and peaceful. I like simple things. And part of my noise and the chaos that I created was jamming myself into the extroverted box because I thought the louder I am, the more boisterous I am, the less of me that is there. And then I can defend any action because it wasn't really me doing it. It was this crazy person over there.
Sure.
And I had to realize like that was what was going on in that first year. And even to this day, I still have to maintain positive mental attitude towards the routine and sticking to the routine and doing it when I don't want to do it in some cases.
Sure. Discipline.
Discipline for sure.
As Jocko will tell you.
Yeah, discipline for sure. Is
Get up.
Yeah, get up and do it. Like,
go after it.
Do the work. Don't let things that you don't have stand in your way. And I'm trying to figure out all of that. And then also,
it's beautiful.
how do I come to terms with my life? All these people in my life that, through no fault of their own, knew me a certain way. So I couldn't go to the same places anymore. I couldn't go and be with the same people anymore in the same settings because all that would lead to very bad moments. So that's where you have this shedding moment where you realize, this sounds bad to certain people, but close friends will always be your friends. But the people that were meant for you at a certain point in your life because you would drink and drug with them, you have to let them go. And you can't be polite about it. You just have to let them go. You can't return phone calls, text. You have to just sever, change everything. Because if you don't, I don't. Again, I keep saying that I meant, because if I didn't, I knew that I would fall right back into the trap.
It's a loop.
It's very dangerous.
It's a loop. Yeah.
I lived on, in a positive way, I think, the Tony Robbins of the world, the motivational, David Goggins, the Willings, even the Rogans. I would listen to these. I loved finding on YouTube, they have these compilations of great motivational speeches and moments and speakers and all these great, great things. And I would listen to them on my walk. And that was one of my off ramps too. If I felt like, and even to this day, if I feel like I'm kind of going off the path, I'll listen to them for a minute, or I'll go back to a passage in a particular book and allow myself to recenter that piece.
Of course. Get in alignment.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is knowing who you are. You have to, for me, I had to realize who I was and what I needed to do, what I had to avoid. Otherwise, because I know who I am, man, I will believe me. I can walk into a fucking bar and I can tell you who's got what cocaine in their fucking pocket.
Believe it.
Like instantly. Like I can see it a mile away.
It's so foreign to me. I won't say that whole world is foreign to me. I mean, I'm a military guy. I didn't really do any of that kind of stuff, but I went to an establishment here within the last, couple years, and I don't go to bars at all, but this was before I really stopped going to bars. But there was I went to the bathroom and there was a couple dudes, and I was just like, what the hell is going on in there? And I'm just like, But you brought up something that you must have been thinking what I was thinking. So let's talk about the shedding. I think it's extremely important because I know you've probably lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, right? And I want to see if you'd be open to, is that, how did that make you feel, to knowing that you had to cut people off that are probably family members, good friends for years.
Yeah.
But you knew that for whatever reason, no, again, not bashing them.
No,
it's just, but I understand. I get it. I completely get it. But if you could go into kind of the mindset of what it's like for someone to say, hey, okay, I know that I need to get the people around me need to be different, right? And I'm a firm believer in, if you have a large crowd, a large group of people, that's fake.
Yeah.
It's fake.
Very often.
It's very, very often fake. And you can ride with you need 2 to 3 good guys and a gal in your corner. But everybody else, they're just kind of along for the ride because they got attached to this Anthony, this avatar that you played. They love that guy, the
Yes.
alcohol guy, that,
First guy to
cocaine
get
guy.
invited to the party every time.
Like, Anthony's still here. Yes, let's party.
We're gonna have a good
We're gonna have a good time. I
yeah.
get it, brother. I get it.
was.
But what was that like for you mentally to cut people off? How did that impact you? And if you don't mind, how did that impact your spouse?
Yeah.
Because she's probably like, "Whoa, what is going on?" Right?
Yeah, it's so the first step that I took was trying to come to terms with not only who I really was, but what I wanted to become. And I don't want to change the core of me, but what kind of life did I want to build for myself?
Right.
What did that look like? So the first thing I realized is I have zero control over anything. You have to let everything go and just submit and surrender everything, not just from the addictions perspective, but who you are. So I realized it doesn't matter who's around. It's about how I perceive who's around, how I receive them, how I deal with them. Do they let them emotionally get in my way? Do I respond? How do I respond to them? So that was the first thing. I had to work really, really hard on not getting or allowing myself to be triggered emotionally, either positively or negatively. And that took and still takes a lot of work. What I mean is just stay in my own lane. Just know that anything that's going on around me isn't somebody directing that at me. It's just happening, and how I respond to what's happening is what I'm going to say control is the main and most important thing.
Your reaction.
My reaction. And then I realized, like, people are who they are. People drive like assholes on the road.
Yeah.
They're, they'll say mean things to you at the store. The people on TV or on social media are doing crazy, weird shit. And you could be angry about it, or you could just turn off the fucking TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So I started to go, I'm just going to not avoid, but learn to deal with these situations so that it doesn't bother me so much. And then once I got grounded emotionally and thought to myself and learned how to not be over responsive to anybody's whatever they're doing, saying, then it became, I was always in my own mental and emotional safe place. And I still get upset. I still get angry. I still get triggered. I'm not crazy. Like anyone that says, and I'll equate this, anyone that says, I love being a parent. Every moment's wonderful. They are completely full of shit.
Of course.
Like, so I equate it to that just so people can register that feeling.
Sure.
Like, you have to know and learn to control your emotions. And that's what I did. I tried to, and controlling isn't the right word, but so that was the bubble I built emotionally.
I think it is the right word. I really do. It is controlling your emotions, because the emotions come up. And like I always put on Facebook, you are not your thoughts.
Exactly.
You are not your thoughts. These thoughts will come up, and it doesn't mean you need to react, but you could observe.
Mel Gibson was just on Joe Rogan, and he said something that I thought was profoundly interesting. He said, you're responsible for your second thought.
I heard that.
And your first action.
Throw it away.
And I'm like, how amazing is that? The first one, just chuck it.
Chuck it.
But the second thought, that's on you. And then your first action based on that second thought is you. Absolutely. And I thought, what a wonderful, simple way to put it. And it compacts so much, but he's right.
100% right.
I'm like, God, I love Mel Gibson. And that was really, really good. So he said it best. I didn't say it. This is all Mel and on Joe.
I've heard it.
On Rogan's
I've
show.
heard it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's like, once you do that work, and this is why like people are like, Armando's weird breath work and meditation. That's why I do it. Yeah. It gives me that space in my mind to observe the self. I'm observing these thoughts.
Absolutely.
I don't need to react and be like, this guy cut me off and he's a jackass. And,
I'm going to chase him to the
the
next
alpha
lane.
male Armando wants to go down and run. And, no. That was Armando 20 years ago.
Same, yeah.
At some point, you have to start to learn and be like, okay, these are my own toxic traits, and observe. And then you can be like, okay. Now, and then you become what? The master.
Yeah.
Eventually you become the master. But hey, we're 50-year-old guys, so we got this down pretty good, I think.
I do have,
to some
like,
extent.
there is a dichotomy in me. And I have old Anthony and then new Anthony.
Of course.
And I'll say very often to people, God, old Anthony would love to do that. Old Anthony would be the first person at that, or whatever it was, or my first response, or old Anthony would react this way. And I'm like, but the new Anthony is just going to walk to his car and drive home and make breakfast for his kids, or whatever.
Yeah, beautiful, brother.
But so once I came to terms with understanding that not everything that happens around me is directed at me
you.
or to me,
Mm-hmm.
then it became easier for me to not emotionally respond to everything and not be responsible for all the chaos out there, and just do my own thing in my own way and be peaceful.
Right.
So then people start falling off because you're not showing up at the parties, you're not responding to your texts. So a lot of that fall off and shedding happens just naturally.
Mm-hmm.
There's another layer of that where you have to actively shed. And I was never rude about it, but I would say, hey guys, I can't go. I'm not going to do it because here's why. And I would be very frank and say, I can't risk drinking, drugging, and whatever. And your real friends rise to the top, and they're there, and they're still there to this day, and they
Beautiful.
know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, God bless them, have all jumped on and have been supportive. But it's funny. Like there was a part of me when I was in the hospital. Very, very, very few people in my family and very, very few friends actually called, text, checked up, came to visit. And I was very angry for that for a long time. And I thought, again, they have their own lives, their own things. I can't be mad at them. So I can't, so you have to learn that the biggest thing through all of this for me has been everyone's got their own shit going on. And everyone deals with their own shit their own way. So just be you, be happy, enjoy the day, make the phone call, say hello, be cordial and participate in life how you choose to. But stay away from the chaos, stay away from the noise, stay away from the nonsense, and try not to let that first thought win.
Beautiful.
So, and I'm trying to teach my kids that through actions, not through my words. And so thankfully, I feel like I'm doing a good job. Who knows? I'm trying to do a good job.
You're doing a great job, brother.
And it's hard. It's the hardest work in the world to be not just a good dad, but to try to be a good husband. Because some days you just want to mail it in, and you can't.
Yeah.
Because and that's my wife says something that's pretty profound as well. And I'm not sure where she got it or if she thought of this. Maybe she did. But some days it's 50-50. Some days it's 80-20. Some days it's 70-30 between us and with the kids and in life and other things. And once I let that settle in and realize that it's okay that it's not 100, because it can never be 100-100.
Right.
Well, once you realize that some days she's doing majority of the work, and sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then it switches, and you take the weight for her, for the kids, for family, and for things.
Errands, chores, cooking,
all of
whatever.
that.
Yeah, all of it.
And then let the pressure not win. Just deal with how it comes at you.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those things, that's the part that I love most about the clarity of my sobriety now, is that I try not to take things personally. I try not to get upset. I try to let things come the way they come and deal with them. Because at the end of the day, life is a series of battles, right?
It is.
Whatever the battle is you're dealing with. So it's a storm. You're either in one part of the beginning of the storm, you're in the middle of the storm, or the end of the storm, just in time for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy it, man. Like enjoy the ride. Shit. Because otherwise you could be angry, pissed off, miserable all the time. And I feel bad. I've got people in my life, I'm not going to say what category of my life, who eat like shit. They don't exercise. They not in the chaos of all of that shows. So
it does.
And I wish I could just shake people and go, you don't need all of this nonsense.
Yep.
But then again, that gets preachy, and I don't want to do any of that stuff. But if people ask, I will tell.
Right.
I have some friends that are in the hospital and complaining that the world sucks and everyone hates them and everyone's a dick. And I'm like, well, this is your fucking fault. And until you realize that it's your fucking fault, you'll never have the strength, the will, or the want to fix it.
Right.
You have to want to do the fucking work. And there are days that you don't want to do the work. The days that you want to fucking just do shit and take the easy path and numb out with drugs and alcohol. And you can't do that, man. I can't do that.
Of course.
Because I like who I am now. And it took a very, very long time to get here to say that. I was a piece of shit for most of my life. And really, like, I was nice and I was fun to be around, but I was a fucking prick. I was an asshole who did nothing for anybody but myself ever. And it sucked when you come to terms with what a fucking pile of shit I was.
Wow.
And maybe some of the stench is still on there, right? It's hard. You can't always be clear of it. the difference is I catch myself aware of making a bad choice or a bad action, and I try to course correct. Sometimes I do it well, sometimes it doesn't go well, but the effort is the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
You become aware of the old Anthony kind of creeping
Sure.
in. But gosh, that's the thing. And I guess what I would say is you can make it. You know, no matter how addicted you are, how bad it is, how ugly it is, how dark it is, how scary it is, how heavy the weight is, you can fucking make it. You have to choose to make it. You have to want to make it. And you have to do the work to make it. And you have to do it whether you want to or not. Then you can do it. And you just have to find people in avenues. If it's a book, if it's a meditation, find those off ramps to give you the break that you might need for however long you need it. But keep going. Don't fucking give up. Just keep going. This is another great quote. I hate always doing this, but she's got her toy now. I love it.
Like, oh, all right.
All the success that you want is hiding behind the work that you're not willing to do.
Absolutely.
It's not my quote. I've read it.
I've heard it before.
And it's a wonderful one. And I thought, what a cool way to line things up, because it's true. But there's the other side of that. Some days you need a TV popcorn day.
And it's okay.
And those are great days.
And those okay, yeah.
Embrace those days. I like to use rainy days for that. If it's rainy and crappy, I'll go to the gym, but then I'll do my
cold
work.
days.
Yeah, and then
it's freezing out at 40.
Like, we're gonna make soup, and we're gonna watch The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that sounds great, actually. Yeah,
that's a perfect day.
Yeah.
So, and I love that. And the other side of, I've committed to participating actively in other people's lives, which I never did before. So I try to coach soccer for my kids.
Good job.
I try to do things in the service of others, given the opportunity, whatever that is. If it's as simple as stopping and giving someone some food if I see them in need, or, I don't care what it is. Something is the little things that I like to do. If there's a wrapper on the floor, I like to mindfully pick it up and put it in the garbage. Or the carts that are strewn about a parking lot at the grocery store, I'll try to gather them up and put them in the corral. Because I feel like if you do the right things with positive intention, there is something, I believe in karma. And I think that
100%.
The energy that you create around you and mentally matters. And old me would take that cart, stick it on the side of the, give a shit, man. And so I guess now what I'm saying is I hope that I'm the kind of person that grabs the carts and puts them in the corral.
Yeah.
Well,
you're doing a great job, brother. And it's a testament. All the work is, I'm seeing it. It's here. I mean, I would have, when I first met you, I would have never known. I just thought, man, this guy's got his stuff together. He's fit. He's 50-something.
Right.
And then like the second time I talked to you, I was like, oh, okay. And then we shared our own stories, our own personal stories. I was like, okay. But so you are being of service now, even here at this moment, because this will be blasted out and someone's going to listen to this and it'll inspire them to make change.
Yeah.
And until, just like you said, until you can sit in your shit. And you can sit in your shit and you can sit in it and no one's coming to save you.
No one,
especially if you're a man.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just throw some data out there.
Yeah.
Suicide rates are bananas. Suicide rates for men under the age of 30 have increased 40% since 2020. That is what's going on right now in society.
That's amazing.
But it's a testament to what's going on in society. We weren't designed to live like this. We weren't designed to have all these social medias, all these dopamines, boom, boom. Our minds are just going. It's never ending. And now you got to go to work. And oh, by the way, now your dollar's not going that far. So now all these kids got to have 2 jobs, right? It's getting harder and harder and harder to make it. So I thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing your family story as well. And for Jennifer to being by your side and to providing you, I know. I mean, there's nothing like a woman's touch.
Yeah.
It can heal. Women
definitely
heal.
Yeah.
It's that love. It's that unconditional love. And they can help you overcome almost anything. But you've got to take that first step. And
gotta do the work.
Yeah, you got to do the work. And there's no escaping it. And everyone... What worked for you may not work for others.
Exactly.
What worked for me may not work for others. But if you're relying on the pharmaceutical industry alone to give you a pill to fix you, you are cheating yourself.
Yeah.
And not only that, and I state that because, again, I'm a big stats guy. I love stats.
Yeah.
I memorize things. So, in the mental health industry alone, 337 million antidepressant prescriptions last year alone.
That is
337 million prescriptions in 2024. In addition to that, no matter the specialty, if you went to the doctor, physician, whatever, blah, 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 27% of the time, guess what you left with?
a prescription of some kind.
A prescription for an antidepressant.
Antidepressant?
Yes, that's where we're at in America. That's why, that's why I'm pushing. That's why I'm doing this platform, is to awaken folks, specifically when it comes to the mental health industry, specifically when it comes to the medical industry and blah, 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 all that list, all those other things that, we don't need to go down there now. But, you're being of service by sharing this story, and we are being of service by trying to awaken individuals that the answer that you need is within. Yeah. Everything is within. And no matter what you think, the pill's not going to save you. No. Because 10 years from now, or 2 years, you're going to be right back in the same position.
Worse, even, I think. I mean,
it is.
I think that it's important that we exercise
100%,
at whatever level.
100%.
Take a walk, do sit-ups, whatever you're going to do. Every day at least 15 minutes of something, 20 minutes, whatever it is. Eat well, and by that I mean cook your own food. Yeah. From scratch if possible, on the outside of the store. Avoid. Now,
Go for it, brother.
I love a Jack's frozen pizza. I'm not going to lie.
I just had a frozen pizza the other day. It's a gluten-free one.
And I love it. But if you can learn how to cook and make salad, and you can read, you can cook, then cook. And with purpose and intention, and don't always grab the bag of Doritos, which I'm guilty of, but try to have meaningful and good food and do that. And then have a way to mentally feed your soul. Read a book, go to church.
Work out, whatever it is for you.
Yeah,
playing a guitar.
Playing a guitar, and you can, I think, replace a lot of those pharmaceutical needs with good food, 100%. Exercise, and then trying to find peace somewhere.
Yeah.
However.
Yeah, and I have, over the last couple of years, I have, and I still do, sit with veterans, talk with them, try to help them. As an older gentleman, we've been through this. Like, let me help you, let me teach you, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of boundaries, just like you have to shed, right? I have learned over that 2-year experience that you can't save people. No. You truly cannot save people. No. And I mean that by this way. If I have a veteran comes to me and he's saying, okay, I'm taking this pill, I'm taking that pill. Okay, great. What are you doing for you? What are you truly doing for you? And the first thing that I'll ask them is, what is your diet like? Yeah. But why? There's a scientific reason for that. The nervous system is broken into 2 components. It's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. You and I and others live in that sympathetic nervous system when we were younger because we were in fight or flight. I got to make it. Yeah. I got to do this. I got to work. I got to do the blah, blah, blah. I got to bring the money. I got to protect the family. I got to do all these different things. You're not at a normal state. You are not regulated, right? And we didn't know that. We were just okay, shallow breathing. You feel it. Like now that I do breath work now, I'm like, oh, my body's telling me something, right? That's right. Yeah. Right. It's like all these different things. So, but because you are in fight or flight mode, as I was trying to explain to these veterans, is that what are you nourishing yourself with? Because if you are feeding yourself Pop-Tarts, McDonald's, whatever to pick what it is, you're not giving your body the sustenance that it needs, the substance it needs to be healthy, to increase your immune system and all these other things. So if you can't that's why I say, if you can't fix your diet, you are out of control.
No question.
And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They'll be triggered, and I'll tell them, good. I'm glad you're triggered because you're learning something about you. I'm sitting here trying to teach you to learn to control your nervous system, but you don't want to hear it. You're not ready yet. Yeah. So in terms of boundaries, it's like, hey, I can't help you.
Yeah.
When you're ready, you come back. But don't come back unless you're ready to talk about diet, nutrition, workout, and whatever modality. It doesn't have to be the way I do things.
Exactly.
It can be whatever.
Do it your own way.
Do your own way. But it all boils down and starts with what you're doing to this vessel. And if you're not willing to take care of this vessel, which, by the way, the mind and body is connected, and the vagus nerve system is right here, and it goes all the way down and attaches to all of our organs. And whatever we ingest, it's bilateral communication.
Yeah.
It's giving it minerals. It's feeding, the communications going back and forth, all these things. But if you're not ready to sit and do that work, you're not ready.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I've had to learn to cut people out. Like, okay, not answering texts. Hey, I don't have time. I got to protect me.
Definitely.
And my peace. And, and working on this project, you can't save everyone. So, and I pound the table on that for the individuals that are out there that are relying on the medical industry. And I believe in the medical industry. I truly do. Yeah. Doctors are beautiful. Oh, they're intelligent nurses. They saved your life. Western medicine is needed. However, we have gone to the spectrum of bananas.
Yeah.
In terms of relying on pharmaceuticals. And you can continue to do that, but look at the data. Look what's going on in America.
It's crazy.
It is bananas.
I think that a nice blend, acute medical care Western style is important, but I also think that the daily lifestyle of the Eastern style of medicine is incredibly important. Meditation, breathing exercises, what you eat, learning what kind of body type that you are. And by that, I mean, and I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently, but you have to be soulful in your approach and live a certain way so that kind of the Eastern side of medicine is very, very important too.
Sure.
Massage and acupuncture, it's all important stuff.
Absolutely.
So I do it all now. I try to keep it balanced, and I go to the doctor if acutely there's something wrong. Sure. And I go for my checkup to make sure that things are aligned up. Because I'm not entirely unconvinced that my residual high blood pressure isn't from all the alcohol, drugs, and cocaine that I've done all my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got it pretty well under control, where I've minimized the dosage from a daily perspective from what it was to like a very small percentage of dosage from where it was. I'm trying to make it so I don't ever have to go back on it. And we'll see. Yeah. So I still got a couple years to go, but I think I'll get there.
Yeah, you're doing great, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I really honored this conversation. I value you as a human, and I value your time, and I immensely respect you for the work that you're doing. And I'm so glad that you had the courage and vulnerability to be on this show and podcast for all 7 people that are going to listen to it. But you know what? It's okay.
Hey,
it's okay.
You never know, man. I love what you're doing, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.